From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. On the second day of his state visit to the UK, U.S. President Donald Trump has met with outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May. May and Trump hosted a business breakfast meeting with a number of British entrepreneurs. During the meeting, Trump reportedly told May that she should stick around so they could work on a trade deal. Theresa May announced her resignation last week, which will come into effect on Friday. This came after she failed to gain parliamentary approval for her Brexit deal 3 times in a row. Later on Tuesday, Trump is expected to hold a banquet at the U.S. ambassador's residence. But as Trump continues with his visit, mass protests are planned across London. Thousands are turning out in opposition to the U.S. president and his highly controversial policies. Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn is expected to speak during a rally in London's Whitehall government district. At an earlier rally, Labour lawmakers expressed their distaste at Trump being honored with a state visit, saying they don't believe he deserves that honor.
The President Trump, he strangled rule of law, he's strangling press freedom, he's strangling Western alliance, he's strangling European Union. Basically, he's strangling British political system.
Well, we're here protesting against Trump because we don't really think he should have been invited here in the first place. We don't like him. He's a misogynist, a racist, probably a fascist. And we can do without that kind of people here. We don't think we should be giving him the royal welcome.
Let's turn to our correspondent in London, Pablo Navarrete, at the main rally.
Here in central London, thousands of Londoners have come out on a rainy day to protest Donald Trump, the US President's UK visit, who arrived yesterday as part of a 3-day visit. Today he is meeting with British Prime Minister Theresa May. Just behind me, the protest has started and is on its way to 10 Downing Street, the Theresa May's residence, and after that will be finishing at Parliament Square, just next to Big Ben. You can see in the background people congregated in front of me in Trafalgar Square, and a wide range of groups have come to protest, including trade unions, other social movements, groups denouncing the imprisonment of the journalist and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, Latin American groups, migrant groups, those that oppose US intervention in Latin America have seen placards for being opposed to the ongoing coup attempt in Venezuela. So a range of groups are here in central London to protest US President Donald Trump's visit. Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, is set to speak at the Parliament Square rally in an hour or so.
That was Pablo Navarrete from the UK. Sudan's military council has announced it will cancel all previous agreements with the opposition and hold elections within the next 9 months. In a televised statement, the head of the military council, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, said the council will stop all negotiations with the opposition alliance, whom he accused of being responsible for the deadlock in negotiations for a transitional government. The announcement came hours after a violent crackdown by the military on protesters left at least 30 people dead.
Our honorable citizens, a legitimate mandate can only be made through the ballot box. As a result, the military council has decided the following. Firstly, cancelling what has been agreed, and ending negotiation with the Declaration of Freedom and Change Forces. Secondly, a call to general elections within a period that does not exceed 9 months from now, with international and regional monitoring, creating a necessary environment for this.
The announcement comes hours after the military forcefully broke a sit-in outside the army headquarters, and we're now being confirmed that the death toll is now 235. Hundreds have also been left injured, according to the Central Committee of Sudanese Doctors. And the United Nations has strongly condemned the use of excessive force against civilians by Sudan's security forces. The UN Secretary General has also reminded authorities they are responsible for the safety of all citizens.
The Secretary General strongly condemns the violence and reports of the excessive force used by security personnel on civilians that have resulted in the deaths and injury of many. He condemns the use of force to disperse the protesters at the sit-in site, and he is alarmed by reports that security forces have opened fire inside medical facilities. The Secretary General reminds the Transitional Military Council of its responsibility for the safety and security of the citizens of Sudan. He urges all parties to act with the utmost restraint. This includes responsibility for upholding the human rights of all citizens, including the right of freedom of assembly and of expression.
Thousands took to the streets of Argentina on Monday to commemorate the Day Against Gender-Based Violence. Since 2015, June the 3rd has been chosen in Argentina as a day of demonstrations to condemn gender violence, discrimination, and to defend the right to choose. Under the motto, "Not one less," women flooded the streets of Buenos Aires, sporting the traditional green and purple scarves, which have become a symbolic of the abortion rights movement and women's rights movement. The march set off from Argentina's Congress and finished outside the presidential palace. According to official figures, nearly 300 women in Argentina were victims of gender violence only in 2018.
In Argentina, over the years, and even with all the protests from women's rights movements, the state continues to look the other way and allocates only a meager budget to this issue. They set aside less than 1 peso, or about 22 cents of a dollar annually per woman, to end the gender violence.
An expo for women entrepreneurs is currently being held in Venezuela. Its objective is to highlight women's role in the development of a new economic model.
Women who were previously excluded from having access to small business loans showcase their creativity through the diversity of products they create. Now, with the support of state banks, they build their businesses and increase Venezuela's productivity.
Through this initiative, we are able to keep pushing our country forward. We have demonstrated that we are capable of making a difference. This also serves as an incentive for women who are unemployed but possess various skills. They too can start their own businesses through programs such as this.
These socio-productive initiatives are yet another opportunity for women to overcome the crisis Venezuela faces due to the economic blockades imposed by the United States. Through the government program I Am a Woman, 2,000 projects are being conducted throughout the nation.
This has consolidated empowering initiatives sought by Commander Hugo Chavez. In this time of war, it has allowed us to overcome challenges and demonstrate that across various sectors and at every moment, we continue to be who we are, entrepreneurial women. And today, we have a different vision because we have prepared ourselves. We have experience, but we are confronting an external enemy who wants to put an end to the Bolivarian revolution.
In Venezuela, more than 370,000 women are in the productive sector. Every entrepreneur receives training that allows them to access government grants to strengthen their small enterprises.
I think that these types of experiences are important and fundamental to the development of a country. How could we not develop Venezuela, a country that is among those with the richest resources in the world? We have raw material, oil, minerals, and fertile land from which we can obtain everything we need to produce our clothing, food, and services for our livelihood.
According to the government, more than 26,000 women entrepreneurs have participated in this process over the last 3 years.
We have more stories coming up. Don't go away.
A quest in the nature to find their roots.
Nosotros somos parte de un mismo mundo, somos parte de la Pachamama, ¿no?
Telesur Documentaries presents Radical Friends. Sunday, only on Telesur. we have been present in all the events stirring our peoples. United for each transmission and in tune, we bet on a new Latin American vision. Now, we are also accompanied by the Caribbean people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Each day working for the best understanding and communication. Tell us more. The news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us again. Doctors and teachers have been holding more demonstrations in Honduras, even after the government revoked 2 emergency decrees at the heart of the protests. After days of pressure in the streets, on Sunday night, President Juan Orlando Hernández withdrew 2 decrees, which the protesters say will privatize healthcare and education. But he announced 2 new decrees. The protesters said they were not consulted about the new legislation and that therefore their action would continue. They also condemned the use of violence against them and demanded an impartial investigation on these acts. Rural communities and campesinos in El Salvador are calling on members of the National Assembly to pass a law on food sovereignty. They want to encourage healthy eating through agriculture.
People here in the community of Esperanza, outside San Salvador, want a healthy diet free from chemical fertilizers. They're growing fruit, vegetables and grain on small household plots with the help of environmentalists.
We have these agroecological alternatives that are very efficient at decontaminating the soil. You just have to give them their nutrients and time to breathe so that they can produce seeds and fruit that is totally free of chemicals.
Discussion of a law on food sovereignty for El Salvador has been shelved by the National Assembly. Some lawmakers defend the interests of the fertilizer companies and the sugarcane industry, and that harms rural communities.
I hardly use chemicals at all. In fact, I never liked them. And now I know they cause harm to human beings, so I try not to use them. On this plot of maize, I didn't use any gramaxone or other toxic herbicide.
The high price of vegetables, eggs and cereal has forced Mercedes Monge to grow her own food using agroecological techniques.
I don't need to buy at a supermarket or any other market because I have my own market here at home.
As World Environment Day approaches, agroecology or death is the call environmentalists are making to members of the National Assembly. They want them to benefit communities like this with a law that guarantees not just food, but healthy crops and food sovereignty.
In other news, Antigua's Prime Minister has signed an initiative that would encourage Caribbean countries to take steps to end plastic pollution in the region. The St. John's Declaration was signed on Saturday as the island hosted the Play It Out Festival. The free concert saw the coming together of regional and international artists with policymakers to raise awareness about contamination. During the concert, Prime Minister Gaston Brown thanked the country for their support in the bid to end plastic pollution.
The government acted expeditiously to protect our citizens and our environment. We responded in the strongest possible way by passing legislation that bans the utilization of single-use plastics and styrofoams. Tonight, I thank the citizens and residents of Antigua and Barbuda for your responsiveness, your participation, and commitment to eliminate single-use plastics from our environment.
Boko Haram fighters have carried out multiple attacks on military bases in Nigeria's Borno state. According to security sources, the fighters launched simultaneous attacks on 4 military bases in the early hours of Monday. They reportedly managed to overrun 3 of them after prolonged gunfights. No details on the number of casualties have been provided so far. Boko Haram has increased attacks on military bases in recent months. And now for the last in our series, Mozambique, the People Rebuilt. Culture has long been an important tool for recovering the history of the African continent, and now it's a key part as the people of Mozambique recover from the devastation left by Cyclone Idai in March. Our correspondent Andre Vieira has a special report.
Multilingual, multicultural and multi-ethnic are just some of the adjectives to describe Mozambique, a country that until 1975 was a Portuguese colony.
When the colonialists were in Mozambique, our traditions were hardly visible because there was very little space to present our culture. Then there was the struggle for national liberation, which lasted 10 years. The colonialists left, Mozambique took control, and that's when our African traditions came to the fore.
This is a country of many different rhythms, colors, dishes and beliefs. Tradition is at the heart of all of these, and it is strongest in rural communities like this. 43 languages are spoken in Mozambique. In this community, the language is Ndao. The same diversity is expressed in the different kinds of food they grow.
Corn, mangoes, sweet potatoes, cassava, inemba beans, and bete beans, we plant them all here. But this year, the harvest failed because of the drought.
Marabenta and Kizomba are 2 of the steps practiced by this group of dancers in Beira, the capital of Sofala province. For them, dance is a vehicle of cultural resistance and social cohesion.
After Cyclone Idai struck, some people got very tense and out of control. Some even started stealing. This helps to loosen up the mind.
In the bigger cities too, it's clear how culture has become an essential tool for rebuilding a sense of community after Cyclone Idai left more than 600 people dead in this central region of Mozambique.
We are rehearsing our dances, and then there will be a big party where we will show them all. There are many dances: kizomba, street dancing, traditional dancing, and others.
Capoeira is one cultural expression that crosses continents. This 19-year-old was baptized by his group as Zumbi, an important warrior who led the fight for freedom of Africans enslaved in Brazil.
We have to keep the tradition going, and that's why we practice this, so we don't lose the traditions of our elders, so that we keep them up.
The African continent was the cradle of humanity, and in spite of the huge challenges they face, people here are determined to defend a culture that goes back thousands of years. Being here has given us a chance to learn firsthand about a history we never got taught at school.
Desde la provincia de Sofala, André Vieira y Sebastián Soto, Telesur, Mozambique.
We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent. The place where art and tradition are part of the same nucleus. Artistic expressions, values, lives. Fridays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A court in France has sentenced an imam to 2 years in prison for helping migrants cross the English Channel. The imam, who has not been named, was accused of offering inflatable boats and life jackets to migrants trying to cross the channel to the United Kingdom. His lawyer described the sentence as unfortunate and a new low in the crackdown against migrants by the French government.
I'm shocked by this decision, which seems severe to me, especially given the circumstances. His wife gave birth yesterday. She doesn't speak French and is now here alone with 3 kids. From a human point of view, we could have predicted a different sentence. He's aware of the offense he committed, but he could serve the sentence otherwise than in a person for such a long period of time.
Muslim ministers in Sri Lanka resigned on Monday, accusing the government of failing to guarantee security to minority Islam followers. The ministers and their deputies said they feared for their lives as protests against Muslims escalate following suicide bombings that took place during the Easter holiday. Their decision comes after Buddhist monks had earlier on given the government a deadline to fire Muslim provincial governors over the bombings. 3 weeks ago, mobs of people destroyed Muslim properties, killing 1 person in Sri Lanka's northwestern province.
As members of the Muslim community represented in the government, holding variety of positions as cabinet ministers, state ministers and deputy ministers, have taken a decision today to resign from all the positions and request the government to expedite any inquiry against anyone among us and bring it to a conclusion without delay. We expect that to happen within a month so that we will be vindicated from these allegations.
Now let's take a look at more stories from around the world.
At least 5 people have been killed and 10 more were wounded after a bomb went off in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, on Monday. The bomb targeted a bus carrying government employees. This comes after a series of other blasts hit Kabul in recent days. The incident happened despite heightened security.
Our station is here, and usually I park my car in this area. I heard a very terrible sound, and I told my passengers to get out of the car to help transfer the wounded. But the security personnel did not let us go any further.
In France, 400 people have opened a cooperative shop as a way of boycotting big supermarkets. The principle behind their shop is that people should reclaim their purchasing power by buying and selling products within their local area. Inspired by a documentary, the project was born in Saint-Étienne in 2016.
The advantage of this system is being able to get local products, buying the majority of our products from local producers. So we are able to eat local products, and on top of that, we're able to eat well and reduce all the middlemen.
Farmers in Qatar have turned part of the desert into giant farmlands to provide fresh produce to the people. Between 7 and 9 tons of vegetables are produced daily from the farms, which have been able to aid citizens' needs. Since 2017, Qatar has prioritized the local food production in response to economic sanctions imposed by neighboring nations, which had been Doha's leading source of imports.
After the blockade, it has become a 24-hour job every day. We reclaim vast surface of land, and we increased production, then tripled the production from before the blockade. We used it to produce around 8 to 9 tons per season, and now we have reached 25-30 tons per season.
And before we go, we have information from our sports desk as we continue covering the Cricket World Cup. Sri Lanka is in the lead with 175 runs for 6 wickets, even as Afghanistan's Mohammad Nabi bowled out Lahiru Tirimane for 25. Afghanistan's Hamid Hassan dismissed Dhananjaya De Silva for a duck, having Sri Lanka lose their 4th batsman in a quick succession. And more updates to come, so stay tuned. And with that, we end our news brief. But remember, you can find all of our stories from our website at telesurenglish.net. And be sure to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.